Algebra 1A, Zero of Functions. We are on page 20 of your Chapter 4 packet. If you don't have your packet, just grab out some scratch paper. All right, so first of all, what are the zeros of a function? So graphically, these are going to be the point or points at which the graph crosses the x-axis. Okay? So if we look at the graph down below, the x-axis, that's going to be this line right here, okay? We want to know, where does your graph cross that line? So in this case, there's only one point where that graph, that line, crosses the x-axis. That's going to be our 0, okay? So down here on number 1 for our example, our 0, we say x equals 2. Okay, because we had to go 2 spaces to the right. So that's how we'll do it graphically. Algebraically, what you really want happening is you want your y value to be 0. Okay, so this is going to be the point or points at which your function is equal to 0. Or you can think of it as the y value is 0. Okay. Other names for these besides zeros, they could also be called, jump down here, they could be called zeros, roots, x-intercepts. I want to know, where does it intercept the x-axis, and or solutions. Okay. So let's do some more examples on page 20. So number 1, we said the answer was x equals 2. How about number 2? So again, we want to think, where does that graph cross the x-axis? Okay, and this time it is 2 points. So we've got 1 point here on the left side of the origin and 1 point on the right side. So this time for our 2 answers, the way you'll see it in textbooks, they'll put the curly braces, and then remember, this is 0, so we had to go 1, 2 to the left, negative 2, and 1 space to the right, which is 1. So those would be your solutions. If you just write x equals -2 and x equals 1, that's fine. All right, why don't you try 3 and 4? So pause your video, try to see what the zeros would be for 3 and 4. So for number 3, your zeros should be 1, 2, 3, -3, since we went to the left. Remember, that's going to be the negative. And +4, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. Okay, number 4, -3 and 3 for your zeros. All right, 5 and 6. 5 will do the same way we've been doing it. And 6 is just a tiny bit different. So feel free to pause and try those if you want. So 5 would be -1 and 5. And for number 6, there's just going to be 3 answers. So if you only have 2 answers, what would be the third answer for number 6? See if you can add that on there. So -5. Most people got -5 and 3. It's just this middle one. Don't forget about 0. Okay? So that's how we solve it graphically. Let's go back up to our definition. Algebraically, what we're going to do is let our equation equal 0. Okay, the point at which the equation is equal to 0. All right, let's go to page 21. Okay, we're just going to do numbers 1 through 4 together. All right, so we're going to take our step 1 and set the equation equal to 0. So we're going to go 0 equals 4x minus 8. Step 2, solve for x. So notice our answers on the first page were x equals. They're going to be the same exact answer here. Okay, we're actually doing the same thing, just a different method of doing it. Finding the zeros graphically and finding the zeros algebraically should be the same answer. All right, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. But again, we are on page 21. So our first step was to set it equal to 0. Second step is to solve for x. So now we do that algebra that we learned in chapter 2 where we're just moving everything to one side, trying to get x by itself. So we can add the 8 and then finally divide by 4. Okay? If I would graph this out, negative 4x minus 8, would look something like this. And notice that where does the line cross the x-axis? It's still at x equals 2. So if you solve it graphically and you solve it algebraically, you should be getting the same answer. So we think of where does it cross the x-axis? At 2. Well, that's also the same value for the 0, x equals 2. All right, let's try number 2. Actually, why don't you guys pause your screen and try 2 and 3. So go ahead and try number 2 and number 3. 4 is a little tricky because it has a fraction in it. We just haven't done fractions very in depth this year, but you should be able to get 2 and 3. Okay, number 2 should be x equals negative 1, and number 3, x equals 7. Okay, number 4 is a little tricky because of the fraction. Okay, we're still going to start with that same first step where we set it equal to 0. From there, we can move that 6 over, so same second step there. The 6's will cancel, so 0 plus 6 is 6. And then what you can do to undo that fraction, it's called multiplying by the reciprocal. Really what we're doing is dividing both sides by 2/3, but when we divide, we multiply by the reciprocal. So you might remember keep, change, flip. We're doing the flip right now. So what's going to happen over here is the 3's will cancel and the 2's cancel. Okay, over here you can put 6 over 1, multiply straight across. So we get 18 over 2 times 1 is 2. So we get x equals 9. Okay? All right. If you want to, you can try 5 and 6. And then once you have those two done, we're not going to do the last little section there. So your assignment is page 22, numbers 1 through 12. Okay? All right, if you want to do those last two, go ahead and do them. Pause your video, and then you can check your answers here in just a minute. All right, number 5 should be negative 4, and number 6 should be 10. So your assignment is going to be page 22, numbers 1 through 12. Okay, you don't need to do the part with using a calculator, the graphing calculator, just 1 through 12. All right, so here's the assignment. If you don't have the paper, I do have it online. You can look at it and do it on Cami. Otherwise, you could do it on your own paper and just copy down all the problems. 7 through 12, and then 1 through 6, just find the zeros on the graphs given. All right, well, talk to you later.